Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Rick Starr. I'd like to welcome everyone to our Tuesday evening meeting of the Fairfield Golden Speakers Toastmasters Club. At this point, it's my pleasure to introduce the president of our club, Louis Denbaum.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our meeting. We meet here at 7:45 every Tuesday. We're in the Hy-Vee Club Room, and I see so many wonderful guests here tonight, so thank you for coming. Let me first tell you what the mission of our club is. The mission of our club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. Each and every member gets to do that. So first of all, of our members, who mentioned Toastmasters this week? Raise your hand. All right, a lot of you. Cool. And I see some guests. I'd like to give our guests the opportunity to stand and say your name and why you're here, just very briefly. 1 or 2 sentences.
You want me to start?
Sure.
Okay. My name is Kayla, and my friend invited me to come check it out tonight, so I'm really excited to see what this is all about.
All right, your friend Luis. Very
Yes,
good.
I'm very thankful to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Gail.
Hi, I'm Sue Gale. I'm here because I like to be entertained by scintillating speakers, and I heard there was some tonight.
All right. Woo-hoo.
I blame Luis too.
You blame Luis. Okay. What is your name?
My name's Gabe.
Gabe?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Who else do we have? Anybody else? Yes.
Hi, my name is Aurelian. I am Annalise's husband, and she's been trying to get me to come for a few weeks now. So she said there was going to be some interesting speakers, and I decided to show up then.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So, at this point, I would like to turn the meeting over to our Toastmaster, Scott Terry.
All right, and the award for, no, sorry, gotta wait on those. Tonight, we do have some awesome speakers, but before we get to that, let's get to our role players of the night. And Elise, our timer, tell us about timing.
Good evening. I'm the timer tonight. I will be turning on the lights, depending on what the time is. Alright, so for table topics, at 2 minutes, the green light will come on. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the yellow light will come on. At 3 minutes, the red light will come on. And all the speakers will have a 30-second grace period. Then for speeches, for example, for Jean's speech, at 8 minutes, the green light will be on, 9 minutes, yellow, 10, red. Then for Luis's, it'll be green at 4 minutes, yellow at 5, red at 6. And for Jeff's, it'll be green at 5, yellow at 6, red at 7, so on. And at the end, I will give, okay, so I will let you know at the end if everyone's qualified. Evaluators. And the evaluators. Evaluators will be 2 minutes for green, 2 minutes and 30 seconds for yellow, 3 minutes for red. I think that's it. Thank you.
Samantha, our grammarian, what is the word of the day?
Hi guys. My role as a grammarian is to do the word of the day, or the word of the week. The word that I chose is admirable. It's an adjective, and it means deserving the highest esteem. And an example that's used is, it's admirable the way she helps her elderly neighbor every Saturday. And my other role is to know good uses of the language, of the English language and words, and also incorrect usage. And I'll give a report at the end of our meeting.
counter. He's pointing at himself. He is coming up to.
Thank you, Scott. My role as our counter is to keep track of the ahs, ums, you knows, so's, buts, ands, tongue clicks, what we call repeats, and false starts. And what all these are forms of filler words, things we do to take up the time to give us time to collect our thoughts and but they're not really needed. So my job here is to help to illuminate that for you so that you can improve. So with that,
Well, it is needed that you are needed to tell us about things that are needed and not needed. It is so admirable that you are needed to be needed to be admirable. All right. Diane is our general evaluator, which we will hear from later in the night. Monty, our greeter and joke master. Monty. And the bell counter is so engaged. Let's get rolling right away with our table topics. Jean Simonton Craig, the master.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Table topics, impromptu speaking, you don't know what's coming, you have, as Annalisa outlined, 1 minute is green, yellow is 1.5, red is 2, you want to be wrapping up. Generally, our theme tonight is pets. So we're going to go ahead and try some spontaneous speaking muscles. Who would like to start? Who maybe doesn't have a role tonight? And by the way, guests, we love having you get up. If you want to watch somebody do it, fine first, but then feel free to get up because nothing like feeling the energy of it all. He's smiling in the back, so he knows that, right? Okay. And of course, if nobody raises their hand, you know the backup plan, plan B, is you get selected. Okay, so let's just try this again. Volunteer, okay.
All right.
Kate, is it Kate? All right, excellent. All right, so another piece about table topics is that you have up to 30 seconds after you hear the question to think a little bit about how you might want to organize your thoughts, perhaps. So you don't have to just start right in. So Kayla, is that correct? Yes. Okay, is your heart beating? Good. She's dead. Oh, no.
I'm good.
Yeah, good, all right. So pick a number between 1 and 5, including 1 and 5. 4. Okay. Do you think that having a pet in your life is important? Why or why not? Good, nice, I'll shake your hand, thank you. Good one.
Thanks.
Okay.
Where do you want me, right here?
Yeah, just like that, perfectly.
How long do I speak for?
You watch for the light. When it goes green, yay, you've made it. And if it goes to red, you need to wrap it up. So that'll be 1 minute, red is 2 minutes.
Well, I absolutely think it's good to have a pet in your life. It's good to have that companion, and it's really nice to have something to take care of, something to keep you on track, give you kind of a routine. It's kind of energy in your home, I suppose. I've always enjoyed having pets myself. I had 4 cats and a dog and a lizard all at one time, and it was great. It was hectic, and I totally loved it. To feel the love coming back at you in that way, it's very neat. So it's good to connect with other people who have pets as well. It's another connection you can make with other people. It's something to talk about. It's something to understand in each other as well. To have that. So also. It's a really good way to expand your mind because you're learning about a different species or many different species. So I really enjoy expanding my mind. It's nice to learn about a whole other part of life that's here with us. So Yes.
You done? All right, next man. All right. Now do you feel some rush, a little bit of rush?
No, actually, I really enjoy speaking.
Oh my-
I just
Good.
people, but yeah, I really enjoy it.
All right, all right. So whether you don't feel a rush or whether you feel like you're gonna pass out, it's all good exercise. All right. Okay, so that wasn't so hard. There's someone else. And if you do faint, we will make sure you get back to your seat. Okay, that's always a promise. Any of our guests? Any more guests? Yes, young man. Not young man, whatever. Gabe, all right, Gabe. This is Gabe. All right, Gabe, how about 1, 2, 3, or 5? Pick one of those. 5. Okay.
And my heart is beating.
And that's normal, absolutely normal, normal. So that's why we practice this, so it eventually starts to settle down. Good. Okay, Gabe, some people would argue that animals are naturally wild and turning them into pets is not a good thing. Do you agree? Why or why not? You want me to read it again, or is that, you feel like you have it?
One more time.
Okay. Some people would argue that animals are naturally wild and turning them into pets is not a good thing. Do you agree? Why or why not? Have a little time. Up to 30 seconds.
I agree that it's not a good idea to make wild animals into pets because there's a different pattern of acclimation that occurs in a domestic environment versus a more natural environment. In the domestic environment, there's a particular pattern of occurrences and behaviors that are, let's say, more refined in a way or more intellectual, so they're less instinctual. So the way that human beings interact with each other is less on an instinctual level and more on an intellectual level, meaning we don't scream at each other, we don't go, ah, we don't do that. So we say, hi, how are you? Whereas in the wild is a more instinctual environment, and there are more base or gross expressions in that environment. And if someone is feels threatening to another being in that environment, usually is more of a physical encounter, whereas in a more domestic environment, it would be dealt with on a more intellectual level, like a discussion between two human beings. So I agree. Thank you.
Okay. The guests are hitting the ball out of the park as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
I want to see if I have any more, because I'm on a roll with guests here, see if any guests want to, Susan Gale, all right. Good. All right. 1, 2, or 3?
1.
Tell us about a favorite pet that you have had. Got it. Thank you.
In my long history of pets, I have had 2. The first one was a horned toad. I'm not sure you call that a pet because it didn't do anything other than look at you. Well, maybe it wasn't even looking at me. Maybe it was just staring off into the 4 corners of its little tank. And then he died. And then as all pets, you take them and you put them in a little jewelry box or cardboard box and you bury them in the backyard. My second pet was many years later, and it was a turtle. I loved this turtle. I was so excited to have this special turtle, and I named it Scurry. It was Scurry because of the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Anybody read that one? It was just total opposite, that's why I named him Scurry. But I let him run around, no, he didn't run. He crawled around the house. He got lost behind a potted palm, and unfortunately he died too. So I have no more pets as of this date. I'm sad to say, and looking forward to what amazing creature might I run into next.
How are we doing?
We're doing great. That's so
Good, okay, so, all right. Okay, I'm still on my newbie roll. Did you just raise your hand? You
Yes.
tilted your head, I took that. Corey, you're correct. It's kind of like at an auction, if you blink, they go, okay, there. Okay. So, Corey, 2 or 3?
3.
If money and logistics were no object, what animal would you like to have as a pet and why? Read it again.
Yep.
Got it, okay.
So if money or logistics was not a problem.
No issue.
No issue. What pet would I like to have and why? That's a really good question. We heard some really good things about domesticated animals versus undomesticated and wild animals. And I think if money and logistics was not a limitation, I think I would really enjoy spending a lot of time in the African safari with the animals, but I think I'd probably choose to leave most of them there because they're probably better off in their wild habitat. If money and logistics was not the limitation there, I think it would be a very wonderful experience to spend 4, maybe 6, maybe 12 months living in that environment, of course, with with modern day plumbing and water, maybe even a cell phone. But I think it would be a tremendous experience to spend with those animals, especially gorillas and monkeys and those types of things that we don't get to see probably in our natural environment here in the United States. I think it would be really awesome to see what elephants do on a day in, day out basis. That's something that you don't get to see, even if you go to the Blank Park Zoo or if you go over to the Niobe Zoo, the local zoos close. They're penned up in a cage. You don't get to see the real nature in action. So money and logistics were not the limiting factor. I think I would spend the time in the safari learning what the animals do, but I wouldn't want to bring them home.
Oh, that was awesome. So like, you think you're living with them and they're thinking they've got this new little pet. This Corey pet that they've got, That was really great. All right, we have time for one more, and I have one more question. So, yes, Annalise's husband, but I don't know.
Aurelian?
Aurelian.
Yeah, I figured I should finish off the newbies.
Yeah, well, no, it's great, and we've heard some great things about travels and stuff, so this is probably not going to be travel, but we'd love to hear from you in the future. Well, we have one question, but I'll give you the option to choose it. It's number 2. Would you like number 2? All right. Okay. Dog people, cat people. People often have strong opinions. Which animal would you prefer to be in a relationship with, and why?
So I find it pretty interesting, the questions or the topic of the day today being pets, because my wife and I always have fun discussions as to whether or not we should actually get a pet. And I end up on the let's not get a pet side. So for me, actually, since we have to choose one or the other here, I would probably be in a relationship with a cat, because in my experience, dogs, I think that the benefits might be a little bit greater than cats, but they're also much more needy than cats in general. I feel like with a cat, you could just leave it alone all day and it won't mind. In fact, it'll probably be happier. Whereas with the dog, they need their walk twice a day. They want to be with you all the time. And those are great qualities if you're looking for that companionship, for that relationship with the animal. But they also become more complicated if you need to maybe go somewhere else, if you want to travel, for example. Then I feel like the cat would be more relaxed and easier to deal with. So that's my thoughts on being in a relationship with either a dog or a cat.
That was so cool because he got that question not whether to have a pet or not have a pet, but which pet are you going to have? Annalisa, you can talk to me later about that. All right. I think we're at time, so we're going to vote now for best table topics. And our timer, Annalisa, did everyone qualify? Could you read the names of the people who qualified so we can remind ourselves of that?
They all qualified. Kayla, Gabe, and I didn't catch
Sue.
Corey, and Aurelian all qualified.
Okay, great. So you have your little strip of paper there. Guess we're really high tech. You just write the name of the person that you want to vote for under best table topics, and then you tear it off and kind of hold it up, and you have somebody who will come by and pick it up for you. And thank you to all of these wonderful guests who got up.
What were the names again? Sorry.
Okay, so we have Kayla, Gabe, Sue, Corey, and Aurelian. That was the hardest part.
Where are we out of, Jeff? Where are we out of? By the way, while the ballots are being collected, if you have a cell phone with you, please turn it off.
Yeah.
Great. Now we're going to have our table topics evaluated, learn what we did well, learn some things we might want to put in future table topics that will make them even more effective. I'd like to welcome up our table topics master for tonight, Dan Craig.
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, viewers at home. This was an admirable set of table topics. That's just the word that comes to my mind. Our first speaker was Kayla, and what I particularly want to commend you for is being brave. First one up. It's something you've never seen done before. That's very good. I thought you were very successful in continuing your logical thought, waiting for that green light to come on. I don't really have a suggestion. Maybe you should check with your doctor about your abnormal heart rate. Gabe talked about animals which are naturally wild, if they should be domesticated. I'd like to commend you for having a very pleasant voice. I know there's nothing you can do about it, but you do. Very nice. But in particular, your delivery was nice because you had very easy gestures. At one point, you were doing something like this. And that's very effective. When you get the hands out there, it really grabs the audience's attention. And also your facial expressions changed. That was a plus. That's a good thing. Also, I felt that you had good logical development in your thoughts. The suggestion for you is kind of a stretch to something a little more advanced. You're doing so many things so well already. I would suggest that you incorporate some pauses. Make a point, a pause. The audience needs the time to catch up with you. Well done. Sue, I enjoyed your humor, though you seem to want to talk about death quite a bit. I think the suggestion that I have for you is to move around a little bit. You kind of parked here. If you'll just make a little move to the front, maybe a step here to engage more with this part of the audience, a step or two here, engage with this part, then that integrates your presentation with the people watching. Then Corey, if logistics were no problem, then what animal would he want to have as a pet? What I especially like, Corey, is that you repeated that a number of times, that question a number of times, and it was actually very effective because it kind of gave a structure to your talk. I thought it was also a good way for you to keep thinking. Instead of just sort of going, you repeat that saying and your brain was rolling along as you thought of the next thing to say. So that was a good technique. I also enjoyed your enthusiasm for the subject. I think the only small thing I would suggest for you is a little more eye contact as you speak and give your points. And the last thing is, before the red light gets too old, Aurelian, the question about dog people or cat people. The really great thing you did was you took time to think. That takes a little poise, but that is a very effective way to organize your thoughts. So well done. My suggestion, just objectively, is that I think you need to rethink your prejudice against dogs. Mr. Toastmaster.
And it's round 2 time. It's time for speeches. Yeah, that's right. Rick Starr is about to come up here and introduce a newbie of herself, Jean Simon Craig, who's done this maybe once, I think. Rick, Master Rick, come on up. Tell us about the Rick Jean.
Thank you, Scott, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. Jean Symington Craig has been a Toastmaster since 2006. She's a Golden Speakers past president, has been the Area 92 governor, has held a number of club officer positions, and is a member and the club liaison for Conscious Communicators Toastmasters at the Iowa State Penitentiary in Fort Madison. Jean values her own personal growth from Toastmasters and the opportunity to support others to achieve their leadership and communication goals. Tonight, Jean is speaking from the advanced manual titled Interpretive Reading. The purpose of an interpretive reader is to communicate through voice the work of another often. The interpretive reader's goal is to so enthrall the audience with a story that the audience isn't even aware of the reader. The reader makes the story come alive. Jean has certain objectives for her speech tonight. In fact, every speaker that comes up has certain objectives, and I ask you to keep the objectives in mind when you're filling out the speech evaluation. The objectives of Jean's speech are to understand the elements of interpretive reading, to learn how to analyze a narrative and plan for effective interpretation, and to learn and apply vocal techniques that will aid in the effectiveness of the reading. Jean's speech is 8 to 10 minutes long, and the title of Jean's speech is Glorious Whitewashing, an excerpt from The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. The story takes place in the 1860s in the Deep South, and the dialogue uses the regional accents of the time. Tom is the principal character. He lives with his Aunt Polly, who has a houseboy named Jim. Tom also has a cousin named Sid. As the audience, it's helpful to know that the boys are passionate about the game of marbles, winning which can depend upon your marble arsenal. So please join me in welcoming Gene Symington.
Saturday morning was come, and all the summer world was bright and fresh and brimming with life. There was a song in every heart, and if the heart was young, the music issued at the lips. There was cheer in every face and a spring in every step. The locust trees were in bloom, and the fragrance of the blossoms filled the air. Tom appeared on the sidewalk with a bucket of whitewash and a long-handled brush. He surveyed the fence, and all gladness left him, and a deep melancholy settled upon his spirit. 30 yards of board fence, 9 feet high. Life to him seemed hollow, and existence but a burden. Sighing, he dipped his brush and passed it along the topmost plank, repeated the operation, did it again, compared the insignificant whitewash streak with the far-reaching continent of unwhitewashed fence, and sat down on a tree box discouraged. Jim came skipping out of the gate with a tin pail and singing Buffalo Gals. Bringing water from the town pump had always been hateful work to Tom's eyes before, but now it did not strike him so. He remembered that there was company at the pump. And he remembered that although the pump was only 150 yards off, Jim never got back with a bucket of water under an hour. And even then, someone generally had to go after him. Tom said, "Say, Jim, I'll fetch the water if you'll whitewash some." Jim shook his head, said, "Can't, Mars Tom. Old Mrs., she told me I got to go and get this water and not stop fooling around with anybody. She says she expect Mars Tom going to ask me to whitewash, and so she told me to go along and tend to my own business. She allowed she'd tend to the whitewashing." "Oh, never you mind what she said, Jim. That's the way she always talks. Give me the bucket. I won't be gone only a minute. She won't ever know." "Oh, I darsn't, Mars Tom. Old Mrs., she'd taken tar the head off of me. Day she would. She never licks anybody. Whacks them over the head with her thimble, and who cares for that, I'd like to know. She talks awful, but talk don't hurt. Anyways, it don't if she don't cry. Jim, I'll give you a marble. I'll give you a white alley." Jim began to waver. "White alley, Jim, and it's a bully talk." "My, that's a mighty gay marvel, I tell you. But Mars Tom, I'm awful afraid, old Mrs., and besides, if you will, I'll show you my sore toe." Jim was only human. This attraction was too much for him. He put down his pail, took the white alley, and bent over the toe with absorbing interest while the bandage was being unwound. In another moment, he was flying down the street with his pail and a tingling rear. Tom was whitewashing with vigor, and Aunt Polly was retiring from the field with a slipper in her hand and triumph in her eye. But Tom's energy did not last. He began to think of the fun he had planned for this day, and his sorrows multiplied. Soon the free boys would come tripping along on all sorts of delicious expeditions, and they would make a world of fun of him for having to work. The very thought of it burnt him like fire. He got out his worldly wealth and examined it. Bits of toys, marbles, and trash. Enough to buy an exchange of work, maybe, but not half enough to buy so much as half an hour of pure freedom. So he returned his straitened means to his pocket and gave up the idea of trying to buy the boys. At this dark and hopeless moment, an inspiration burst upon him. Nothing less than a great, magnificent inspiration. He took up his brush and went tranquilly to work. Ben Rogers hove in sight presently, the very boy of all boys whose ridicule he had been dreading. Ben's gait was hop, skip, and jump, proof enough that his heart was light and his anticipation high. He was eating an apple and giving a long, melodious whoop at intervals, followed by a deep-toned ding-dong-dong, for he was personating a steamboat. As he drew near, he slackened speed. He took to the middle of the road, leaned far over to starboard, and rounded to ponderously and with laborious pomp and circumstance, for he was personating the big Missouri and considered himself to be drawing 9 feet of water. He was boat and captain and engine bells combined. So he had to imagine himself standing on his own hurricane deck, giving the orders and executing them. Tom went on whitewashing, paid no attention to the steamboat. Ben stared a moment and then said, "Hi-Yee, you're up a stump, ain't ya?" No answer. Tom surveyed his last touch with the eye of an artist, and then he gave his brush another gentle sweep and surveyed the result as before. Ben ranged up alongside of him. Tom's mouth watered for the apple, but he stuck to his work. Ben said, "Hello, old chap, you gotta work, eh?" Tom wheeled suddenly and said, "Why, it's you, Ben. I weren't noticing." "Say, I'm going in a swimming, I am. Don't you wish you could? But of course you'd rather work, wouldn't you? Course you would." Tom contemplated the boy a bit and said, "What do you call work?" "Why, ain't that work?" Tom resumed his whitewashing and answered carelessly, "Well, maybe it is and maybe it ain't. All I know is it suits Tom Sawyer." "Oh, come on now, you don't mean to let on that you like it." "Like it? Well, I don't see why I oughtn't to like it. Does a boy get a chance to whitewash a fence every day?" That put the thing in a new light. Ben stopped nibbling his apple. Tom swept his brush daintily back and forth, stepped back to note the effect, added a touch here and there, criticized the effect again, Ben watching every move and getting more and more interested, more and more absorbed. Presently he said, "Say, Tom, let me whitewash a little." Tom considered, was about to consent, but he altered his mind. No, I reckon it wouldn't hardly do, Ben. You see, Aunt Polly's awful particular about this fence right here on the street, you know, but if it were the back fence, I wouldn't mind, and she wouldn't. Yeah, she's awful particular about this fence. It's got to be done very careful. I reckon there ain't one boy in 1,000, maybe 2,000, that can do it the way it's got to be done. No? Is that so? Oh, come on now. Let me just try. Only just a little. I'd let you if you was me, Tom. Ben, I'd like to. Honest Injun. But Aunt Polly, well, Jim wanted to do it, but she wouldn't let him. Sid wanted to do it, but she wouldn't let Sid. Now, don't you see how I'm fixed? If you was to tackle this fence and anything was to happen to it, aw, shucks, I'll be just as careful. Now, let me try. Say, I'll give you the core of my apple. Well, here, no, Ben, now don't. I'm afeard I'll give you all of it. Tom gave up the brush with reluctance in his face, but alacrity in his heart. And while the late steamer, Big Missouri, worked and sweated in the sun, the retired artist sat on a barrel in the shade close by, dangled his legs, munched his apple, and planned the slaughter of more innocents. There was no lack of material. Boys happened along every little while. They came to jeer, but remained to whitewash. By the time Ben was fagged out, Tom had traded the next chance to Billy Fisher for a kite in good repair. And when he played out, Johnny Miller bought in for a dead rat on a string to swing it with, and so on, hour after hour. And when the middle of the afternoon came, from being a poor, poverty-stricken boy in the morning, Tom was literally rolling in wealth. He had, beside the things before mentioned, 12 marbles, part of a Jew's heart, a piece of a blue bottle glass to look through, a spool cannon, a key that wouldn't unlock anything, a fragment of chalk, a glass stopper of a decanter, a tin soldier, a couple of tadpoles, 6 firecrackers, a kitten with only one eye, a brass doorknob, a dog collar but no dog, the handle of a knife, 4 pieces of orange peel, and a dilapidated old window sash. He had had a nice, good, idle time all the while, plenty of company, and the fence had 3 coats of whitewash on it. If he hadn't run out of whitewash, he would have bankrupted every boy in the village. Tom said to himself, it was not such a hollow world after all. He had discovered a great law of human action without knowing it, namely,
that in order to make a man or a boy covet a thing, it is only necessary to make the thing difficult to attain. If he had been a great and wise philosopher, like the writer of this book, he would now have comprehended that work consists of whatever a body is obliged to do, and that play consists of whatever a body is not obliged to do.
That was fun. All right, take 2 minutes out, and we are back. Wrap on up. By the way, the quote of the day, if it wasn't heard by you before, is animals are such agreeable friends. They ask no questions, they pass no criticisms, George Eliot. We are about to have Art Atkinson read for Luis, finally given his icebreaker. How incredible is that?
Yes, Scott. Good evening, Toastmasters. Well, yes, Luis Correal is finally giving his icebreaker. We know him well as a speaker already because he has been one of those thirsty people to come and do table topics as often as the chance presented itself. Tonight he's giving his icebreaker. His job is to identify and exercise speaking skills that he already has in place and to learn what more there is to develop. Rather than steal his thunder by trying to tell you something that he's going to present about himself in his talk, I asked him for a few random notes about things that we might not otherwise know, such as the fact that not only is he an English and Spanish speaker, but this summer he's starting to learn German, Portuguese, Italian, and French. No small matter. He's been to the pyramids of Chichen Itza and to the Niagara Falls. He has run a half marathon or two, and he aspires to be a fruitarian and a motivational speaker, as if those seem to be a single venture. So, with not any more delay, let me welcome Luis Correal.
Fellow Toastmasters, esteemed guests, viewers at home. Today, a pleasure to speak to you about me. Have you guys ever wondered who you are? What makes you, you? Every 7 years, every single cell in our body will have died and will have been renewed with a new one. So therefore, are we really our bodies? Also, we think differently and feel differently than when we were kids. So, are we our emotions, our thoughts? I think we are a bundle of walking experiences. So I will talk to you a bit about my experiences and what has brought me here. These two are the two women that are close to my heart. It's my mother and my sister. Some of you guys already know where I'm from. I have said it before in a few of my improv speaking. But do you know how to spell it? It's Colombia, not Columbia. This is one thing that can gear a lot of Colombians grind Colombians gears, yes. So, yeah, you'll know how to spell it now. They will like you that much better. So this is what Colombia's flag looks like. That is the demographic part where it is South America, right on the tip, right before Panama, in between the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. It's the only country that has two oceans right next to each other. Now the first thing that you think about when you say Colombia, oh, you're from Colombia, is that we're big producers of baking soda. I cannot tell you how wrong this is. only 1 to 2% of the Colombian population produces baking soda. And the rest of us, you know, in 2012, it was actually said that Colombia was ranked 3rd on the Happy Planet Index. We are happy, loving, caring, warm people, very much family-oriented, who get a bad rap for the 1 or 2%. This is some of the food that I ate while growing up. Ajiaco, bandeja paisa, empanadas, arepas, mojarra frita, you know. Now, we cannot talk about Colombia without talking about its tropical nature and how delightful of fruits we have. As already mentioned, I aspire to be a vegetarian, so this would be a wonderful place to be. It's kind of cheap too. As a matter of fact, my mom once a week would go grocery shopping for only fruits, and the whole kitchen would be filled with fruits. It was paradise, nature's candy. So this is the city where I was born, Bogota. It's the capital of the country. Once in high school, I got asked, "Do you guys live in caves?" We do not. As a matter of fact, there are cities and we have houses and not so much huts, but we do have mountain ranges around the cities, which really allows for a very grounding experience, and it's very beautiful to be able to see those. So I grew up in a small town here, like in Fairfield. Its name is Chia, which actually means moon in a native language of some of the natives from where I'm from. And these are also some of the students that I grew up with. Over there we had grades from kindergarten all the way to 11th grade. We do not have 12th grade in Colombia. I did not get to graduate over there because I came here to the United States at the age of 14. The whole group of students from kindergarten to 11th grade was 300 people. When I came to the States, that wasn't even as big as my freshman class. So this is Atlanta, Georgia. This is where I came 8 years ago. Yeah. There we go. Cool. So when I came to high school, naturally I enrolled in some sports. I've always liked to be active, so I partook in cross country, and I am here in my soccer team as well. Naturally, I made some friends when I came to Atlanta, had a lot of fun and lasting relationships, and I graduated eventually. So at this point in my life, I knew that I needed to do something. All this pressure from society, parents, and I also I just needed to do something. Know who I was gonna be, what I wanted to become. So I started doing things that I enjoy doing, such as working out, eating healthy, meditating, and jumping out of airplanes, you know, things like that. And then one day, I happened to be on Facebook, and I felt like this bunny, manifestation expert, because I found MUM, consciousness-based education. I'm like, okay, check this out. So I didn't even come for Visitors Weekend. I came straight here, made friends, and after all this time, all this growth that has occurred in the past few years, I have learned one thing, is that I still have much to learn. And that is a beautiful thing. Thank you very much.
I think that should be a new hat. All right, take 2 minutes and evaluate. And we're back. Wow, we do have incredible, fantastic speeches tonight, that's for sure. Louis will now bring us Mr. Wiener Dog himself. Louis?
Toastmaster. It is my pleasure to introduce and be evaluating Jeff Shipley. Thank Jeff for taking time off from the campaign trail to join us tonight. Jeff is delighted to be talking about his favorite topic, his dog Waffles. He is giving speech number 8 from the Conscious Communicator Manual. Get comfortable with visual aids. The objectives from the manual are select visual aids that are appropriate for your message and the audience, and to use visual aids correctly with ease and confidence. In addition to that, Jeff is looking to eliminate filler words. So please help me welcome Jeff Shipley.
Fellow Toastmasters, our honored and distinguished guests, we thank you very much for coming, and pet enthusiasts everywhere. Everyone loves an underdog. What's more admirable than someone who comes from insurmountable odds to accomplish their personal fulfillment? Good. Tonight, I will share with you an underdog story that's very near and dear to my heart. My dog Waffles is a tail-wagging example of how joyful and happy life can be when you're met with just a little bit of love and compassion. You see, my family adopted Waffles 11 years ago this summer. At the time of adoption, the shelter says she was 6 years old, so we estimate her age to be around 17. The average life expectancy for a dachshund is 12.7 years. When I first met Waffles and we brought her into our home, it was immediately clear that she had been neglected and abused. She didn't play much, overall a pretty glum dog. When I would try and pet her, I mean she stands about 9 inches off the ground, when I would try and pet her, she would cower away as if I was going to hit her. It took several weeks, months even, for her to finally begin to trust our family. And once she did, she began to enrich our lives in ways that we could hardly imagine. So, fast forward 10 years, and I'm living alone in a relatively empty apartment, and it was very clear that something was missing. On July 12th of this year, my parents finally gave Waffles their blessing to move in with me, to move to Fairfield, Iowa. And within days, Waffles was already exploring her new home and making friends everywhere. Her transition was quite smooth. There was one incident on July 15th where she caused me a lot of stress. She decided to walk a mile up the road on campus and visit the domes without my supervision. But aside from that, it was a very relatively smooth transition. So I guess I wanted to share with you some photos of her in her natural habitat now. This is here, her outside relaxing in the sun outside of our apartment at 101 East Hempstead. This is her on the couch. Here she is enjoying the chair. And then this is her licking her lips after enjoying a big bowl of dog food. Now, Fairfield boasts an impressive dachshund population. There's even a very popular restaurant with its namesake Dachs Inn, which is delicious. I recommend it. It's named after the breed. They have dachshund decorations everywhere. That's why it's such a pleasure for me to go there. I also want to note at this time that Waffles is a strident anti-war activist, and the only article of clothing she owns is emblazoned with a very bold peace sign. There is a story of a dachshund being stoned to death in England during the First World War in an expression of anti-German rage. And this story really saddens Waffles as she prays diligently that humanity can move past war and aggression that has engulfed the world for her entire life. I think it's that sentiment that makes her and I such wonderful companions. But Waffles moved to Fairfield with one very clear purpose. Does anyone know?
To run the wiener dog race.
Wiener dog race. That's right, wiener dog race. Wiener dog race, Nelson. Feel the power. This is a wonderful Fairfield event. It's one of the reasons I actually moved to Fairfield. That's a much longer story. But it's true. It's true. I read it anyway. So I was eager to see her compete at a high level, proving that her spirit and indomitable will could overcome any obstacle. More importantly, Waffles knew that she had the heart of a champion, and what she lacked in size, she more than made up into tenacity and determination. So we began training. And Waffles was an older model from a used dog store. So the first thing was go to Dr. Pollock at the animal hospital and get her a tune-up. We made sure her spark plugs were in order, that her tires were properly inflated, to get the go-ahead from a doctor to make sure her engine was ready to run. And dachshunds are a breed that tend to suffer from a myriad of skeletal issues, particularly in their back and hips. And it's just one of the many obstacles we knew we were going to have to overcome. And in fact, in 2010, Waffles had slipped a disc in her spine and was in terrible pain for days, almost close to a week. And frankly, regrettably, I gave up. I was away from home at the time. I said, well, if you have to put her down, that's fine. Get her out of her suffering, because it was clear she was suffering and bring the whole family down with her. But much to her surprise, she made a full and miraculous recovery. So we knew that Karen, placing not too much pressure on her joints, especially her hips and her back legs, was very important. So we went to Timely Solution, our local holistic health store, and we got this healthy hip and joint supplement. With a very happy dog on the bottle. So we got that right in Waffles' face. You're going to eat this and become healthy. Get that full placebo effect. So we feed that. And we ditched the typical canned dog food at our physician's suggestion. And see the next picture. Here she is enjoying some fresh broccoli. The next slide we have her. This is a enjoying a freshly picked apple. She also really enjoys ground raw turkey and raw bison, but she is not a picky eater, however, and has been known to be a bit of a garbage hound, nourishing herself with anything from greasy plastic to tin foil to styrofoam. I don't know how she digests it, but it's pretty impressive that she's still alive with how much this. So Waffles' training consists of me baiting her with some treats, and we ran around the yard. And it was clear she would tire after a few laps, but locally we only had to train for a 10-yard dash. So racing day, October 3rd, 2014, finally arrived. It was bitter cold and windy, and we'd been training during the warmth of the summer. But this next picture just shows her determination. She was ready to do her best and give it her all, which is all I could ever ask from such a sweet soul. So we arrived at the race, and we were greeted from throngs of enthusiastic supporters who were just so happy to see this old dog have her day. And I was never more proud of my dog than when she was awarded the 3rd place ribbon for the hot dog division. And the next is her wearing it proudly in our office. And see, I really appreciated this. It says a picture of a wiener dog next to a beer mug. If anyone had earned a delicious beverage, I thought it would be Waffles. And so, all in all, Waffles has brought me untold amounts of joy and happiness in my life, and I just hope that I've returned the favor to her. And she's already barking about next year's race, and we hope you'll be out there to support her as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Waffles, for enriching our lives tonight. All right, take 2 minutes and evaluate Jeff's wonderful speech. And now, for a very tough task of everybody in the audience, vote for the best speaker. That will be a tough one. Anybody doesn't have a timer? Oh, did everyone qualify? Yes. Everyone qualified. Great speeches. All right, I'd like to now welcome our admirable and wonderful general evaluator, Diane Denma.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's the evaluation section. Sometimes here we call it the dessert. We have the appetizer, table topics, main meals, speeches, now dessert. I'd like to call up the first evaluator. We'll have each speech evaluated now. So we'll call up the first evaluator, and that's Rick Starr, who will be evaluating Jean Symington's great speech. So Rick Starr.
Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, viewers at home, especially Jean. It's always such a joy and a delight to listen to Jean's speeches, especially to her stories. Jean has a very natural, or appears natural, maybe you've had to work very hard at it, a very effective way of expressing emotion through your voice, through your gestures, through your stage presence. One of the objectives of the speech was to enthrall your audience with the story, and you definitely did that. Looking at everyone's faces, they were hanging on every word, and they were laughing, and people were really captivated by the story. So I think you did an extremely effective job of using vocal variety, of using stage presence, stage movement, of using gestures to convey the story. One of the keys to interpretive reading is selecting the passage that you want to read. And I think Jean did a very good job of getting the whole story in, starting at the appropriate place and ending at the appropriate place in the story. It started with Tom's unhappiness at having to work and some other adventures, and then his success as a salesman to convince his friends that this was a good thing if they painted and he didn't. Some of the points in the objectives, did you make effective eye contact? Yes, very much so. Even when reading the story and moving around, you were able to make very good eye contact with everyone in the room, and I felt, and I think everyone felt, you were reading the story to them. One area, I think, for improvement, and usually when I'm an evaluator for Jean's speeches, I feel an abject failure because I can never think of anything she can improve on. But in this case, I think you can improve on your pacing. I felt that a couple of times you could have used pauses more effectively to emphasize something. An example, when Tom looked at the miles of unpainted face before Jim came out, you could have had a pause there to let that imagery sink in, especially with a story that's as well written as anything by Mark Twain. And another reason to do it is a couple times you said something that got a big laugh, and you didn't wait for the laugh to be over. And the laughter kind of stepped on the opening of your next line. So one suggestion, although I think you bracketed the story well, you could have taken some of it out and still had the main points of the story. And so you would have been able to go at a more slow pace and also to have pauses. But overall, wonderful speech. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you so much, Rick. I'd now like to invite up Art Atkinson, the second speech evaluator. He'll be evaluating Luis.
So Luis, thank you for that. Toastmasters and guests, we got to see one of the finer icebreakers that we've had the pleasure of. Here's what Luis obviously has managed to develop already. Smooth delivery. It was with no notes, good vocal projection. I'm sure everyone in the room could hear him. I could hear him. I was in the back row. Really clear ideas, a great setup for himself. He engaged us with the question, how do we know who we really are? And started out with some sort of deep philosophical stuff. And then you had a point that I think that we're a bundle of experiences, a unique bundle of experiences. Then he proceeded to give us all this elaborate visual summary of his early life with very smooth delivery using the voice and the audio-visual material, which is a complexity that we usually never see in an icebreaker. So he's skillful already with the audio-visual material. Great humor and comic timing. Wasn't that terrific? How he used the pictures. See, it's still funny. Everybody's laughing even with the memory of it. So comic timing, pauses, and then rattling off all of that at very high speed, rattling off in Spanish all those fruits in the picture at the fruit market, and slowing down and speeding up. So there's timing, vocal variety, lots of the skills that are going to come up in your competent communicator are in place. Beautiful work. What could be improved? Since you started out philosophically with that point of, well, what are we? We're not the body, we're not the thoughts, we're this unique collection of experiences. That could have served as a wrap-up tie-in point, which you didn't do, and you had the time to do it. So that would be one possible suggestion. Another one that you're going to want to work on, and this will come up later, is just the nervous pacing around. We talked about that before. And a third would be looking at the screen and talking at the screen. You have enough voice to do it, but the suggestion Lewis made last week when he gave a talk with the same issue was you look at the screen and then you address your speech to the audience. So you look with them at it, then you talk to the audience. So all in all, a fabulous icebreaker, great fun. Let's hear some more from you. I'm sure we don't have to worry about that. You raise your hand all the time.
Thank you, Art. Last evaluator for the evening is Louis Denbaum, and he'll be evaluating Jeff Shipley's speech. Louis Denbaum.
Toastmasters, guests and viewers at home, and especially Jeff. Jeff did a lot of things right in this speech. First of all, he greeted the audience. He had an introduction. We knew immediately what he was going to talk about. And then he threw the photograph up of his dog, just grounding that this is about my dogs. His two objectives from the manual were to select appropriate visual aids. You think he selected appropriate aids? Yes, he certainly did. And he used them with ease. He just spoke, showed the photo, spoke, just had that integrated, what the photo was about and what his words were about. He had fantastic humor. He had us laughing about the dog scampering off to the dome, dog's diet. So we were laughing throughout. I watched the audience and everybody had a good time listening to this speech. He had good gestures. I love the part when he actually got down and made believe he was petting the dog. Couple of suggestions for Jeff. Jeff, this is your next to last speech in the Competent Communicator Manual. I would like to see you minimize the use of notes. You did it gracefully. You came over and you kind of looked down at it. But what I noticed is when you did look down, you actually kind of used it as a crutch and came away kind of reading and then moved back. So if you're going to use the notes, just use them as an outline to kind of look down and then come right back with your own words and looking at the audience. The other thing that I would recommend is eye contact. We've had this again, Art mentioned it. When you're looking at the screen, you look, make sure the right photo is there, but then you come back and you're making eye contact with, not kind of dividing your eye contact between the audience and the visual aid. Your own objective was to eliminate filler words. I heard a couple, but I have to say that I believe you have made marked improvement in your filler words. And we'll wait till the counter gives us the report. Other things you did really, really well. Props. The jacket the dog wore. The ribbon. The vitamins. Fantastic. Fantastic. Props are always great. And last but not least, you had some great language in there. The dog is what a sweet soul. And then you said the throngs of supporters at the race, and you then had a great conclusion. Jeff, fantastic job.
Thank you very much, Louis. It's now time to vote for the best evaluator, including the, gotta go back, table topic evaluators. Can I have Annalisa, just the names of the 4 evaluators, if everyone qualifies, of those who qualify?
We have Dan, Rick, Art, and Louis.
Dan, Rick, Art, and Louis. So please vote if you, we'll have 2 minutes for that. We'll vote. Jolynn will collect. And then we'll move right along. Annalisa, would you now give your time report, please? Annalisa Frederickson.
So Kayla was a minute 11 seconds. Gabe was a minute 21. Sue was a minute 25. Corey was a minute 43. Lillian was a minute 20 seconds. And then Jean was 9 minutes 46 seconds. Luis was 5 minutes 44 seconds. Jeff was 7 minutes 10 seconds. Dan, the evaluator, was 3 minutes 53 seconds. We gave him a little extra for 5. Rick was 3 minutes. Art was 3 minutes 13 seconds. And Louis was 3 minutes 16 seconds.
Great, thank you. Our grammarian, Samantha Young, with her report, please. Thank you.
The word of the day was used once by Dan and Jeff and 3 times by Scott, but I must correct your pronunciation.
Yes.
It's admirable, and so short I win it as a suffix.
She already yelled at me for this.
The uses of language I noted, Jean, is your heart beating? I thought that was a funny question. Animal would you prefer to be in a relationship with? Dave used the word acclamation. Sue said, in my long history of pets, I've had 2. Dan said, successful at continuing logical thought. That was an interesting way of stating it. Takes a little poise and rethink your prejudice. Rick used the word enthrall a couple times. Jean, during your speech, there are many different uses of language that caught my ear. Tranquility, melodious, laborious, common circumstance, awful, particular, you said it in a nice, that accent that you were using throughout the, I'd let you if you was me. I thought that was a great riddle. Luis, pleasure to speak to you about me.
Yeah.
This is where I came. Okay, so there's a couple that I caught. This is where I came 8 years ago, so migrated to or came to prefix simple. And Scott used awesome incorrectly.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that thorough report. Next, we'll hear from our counter, Will Burns. Will Burns.
Thank you, Diane. And this was quite a task tonight because there were some great speeches, table topics, and some great evaluations. So I did slack a little bit, did my best here to give you what I did find. For, it's Kayla, 1 and 2 so's. For Gabe, 1 so. For Sue, 1 so. Corey was clean. Aurelian, I caught 1 so that may have been out of place here. Dan, 1 right near the end. Luis was clear, to the best of my ability, but I was really transfixed with your speech, so I may have missed it. I apologize. And the big question of the evening for Jeff. Lewis was correct. There were a couple. I caught one and one so. But he said, market improvement.
Yeah, definitely.
Huge.
Yeah.
Take it to the bank.
Thank you. Very, very admirable, Jeff, because it was a big improvement. Now we are going to have, I just check here what we're up to. Okay, I evaluate the evaluators, that's this section. But before I do, I'm going to go back to this agenda one more time. Because before me, thank goodness, there's a joke, Monty Condon with a joke.
So the theme of the meeting tonight was pets. So I have a pet joke. Now it's a little bit of a morbid joke, but it's still funny though. It has pets in it. There was once a lady who had a dog, and she loved this dog very much. The dog would follow her around wherever she went throughout her house. She'd take it on lawn walks, and very, very much so loved the dog. But, you know, as all things on this earth, things pass. One morning, the lady wakes up, she goes to the bathroom, she brushes her teeth, she washes her hands, and she goes down to the kitchen and starts to cook breakfast. And then she realizes that her dog is not at her feet following her around. So she goes over to where the dog is, and the dog is asleep on his bed. She calls the dog, and the dog won't come. The lady loves her dog very much. So she picks up the bed and goes to the vet. She goes into the vet's office and she puts the bed down on the counter and says, "Doc, will you check out my dog? He's not waking up today." So the doctor looks at the dog, examines it a little bit and goes, "Ma'am, your dog's dead." He says, "Are you sure? Really? There has to be like some other test that you can do. I really love this dog." So the doctor's like, "Okay." So the doctor leaves, goes into the other room, comes back out, he's carrying a bird cage. And the bird cage, there's a cat in it. Puts the cage on the ground, takes the dog bed with the dog, puts it down over here, goes back to the cage, opens the cage, and the cat comes out. She stretches, she walks over to the dog, takes a couple sniffs, walks back, stretches again, and then goes back into the cage. The vet comes back, closes the cage door, picks up the cage, and goes back into the other room. Comes back out, and goes, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but the dog's dead." And she's like, "Okay, I knew that. But thank you for doing the extra test." And so she goes, "So how much do I owe you?" And the vet goes, $300. She was like, "What? What for?" It was like, "Well, $15 for me to say the dog's dead, and then $285 for the cascade."
Good one, wow, surprising, oh, that's great. I'm gonna make this really short, evaluators. Normally I would take 4 minutes, but I'm watching the clock and I think I'll just run through quickly. Yes, 3? So table topics evaluated Dan Craig. Honestly, you could enter in my opinion, this is all my opinion, the humorous evaluation award. You were so funny tonight, filled with humor. It was great. I'm not going to give examples, but great humor. My one suggestion for you, Dan, would be when you were showing Sue, I'm going to pick on that particular example. If I were the evaluator, you did a great job of showing her the staging. but because she's a so-called newbie, although she was very experienced up here, I would have used the example, when you talk about the toad, stand here, and when you talk about the turtle, stand here. That's all. You gave her that, but I would be more specific that way, if I were you. Again, her humor was fabulous, and I loved how you pointed out the use of two techniques. Use a repeating theme that you use for Corey to help you move through the speech, and acknowledging Aurelian, that's a technique. You can take some time before table topics, 30 seconds to speak. So good job, Dan. Rick, I loved how you used the audience, or you told, were you evaluating? I'm sorry. Jean. You told her, Jean, I noticed that the audience was laughing at you, so I thought that was very observant, and that's a technique. What's going on for the audience? Now, if you look out and they're sleeping, you've got trouble. We were not sleeping with Jean. Let's see. And then you stated the objectives, which remind us, oh yeah, that was about it, and then gave examples of what Jean did to meet those objectives. My suggestion for you tonight would be, when we evaluate, it's all I think, I saw, I noticed, I feel. So you did that, but you also said, I think you said, and I think everyone, something. So you made an assumption there about everyone. My suggestion is just cut that out. Just talk about what Rick saw, unless you ask the audience, do you all think that? And then raise the hand. That's just something I read about evaluating that we don't want to bring in, speak for the audience. And I like the way that you suggested to Jean about waiting. That's such a technique in humor. Wait and let the people have their laugh before you move into the next thing. I know I said I was going to move through fast, but what can I tell you? This is Toastmasters. I came here to talk. Art Atkinson, you came out front. You didn't use very many notes, just like right there evaluating. That's what I saw. And again, you also pointed out techniques that we use in speaking. Humor, timing, vocal variety, aids, and of course you're addressing someone that did an icebreaker. You already had, you acknowledged that, you're already using a bunch of techniques. And I had the same suggestion for you. There was somewhere in there you said something about everyone. You could stop a minute. Audience, did you think, and wait for hands to go up. And really let Luis or whoever you're evaluating see that. If you're going to involve the audience, then let us be involved. That's my suggestion. You ended with humor. And I like the way you tied, I thought that suggestion to Luis about tying in that thing in the beginning about who am I or something like that, to bring that in at the end. I like that. Louis, I loved how you opened up with, Jeff did a lot of things right. You know, like caught me. Wow, Jeff did a lot of things right. And then I wanted to hear, what did Jeff do right? And then Louis told us what Jeff did right. Or at least I heard. Again, you reminded us, like Rick, you restated those objectives. That's helpful to me. And then at one point, same. You asked the audience what we thought, but you didn't give us a chance, really. It was just brushed over. So, audience, do you like? What do you think? Raise your hand, that kind of thing. That's my suggestion. I liked how you ended with minimizing the use of notes, and I just would have brought in there, Jeff, when you don't have your notes, we feel you more.
Yes, we're a bit over on time, so let's get to them really quick. Best table topics of the night, Gabe! Speaker of the night, Luis! Evaluator, Lewis. Yeah, come on down for about. Really quick. Come on up, Lewis. Okay.
We are running behind, but we do have some club business, so I have to ask you club members to stay. First of all, I want to introduce Corey Morrison, our Area 92 Governor. Corey's job is to visit all of the clubs in our area. 5 or 6 clubs, Corey?
There's 5 clubs.
5 clubs, yes. So thank you. We really appreciate it. And you are welcome anytime.
I do have some comments. I can keep you for a minute if I can have.
Go ahead.
Right now?
You need a minute? Yeah,
I
sure.
just want to make a few comments. I was part of a club in the Quad Cities, John Deere Toastmasters Club, and I moved down here to Ottumwa recently and supporting the Ottumwa Club. I'm really impressed, and I think the word is admirable. This club is really awesome. I don't know if I use it, but I miss my home club, the club I started with. The agenda was very similar to what you guys do here, and there was so much energy and passion. And the club that I'm trying to support, I don't want to knock the Ottumwa Club, but that's my home club, and I wish it was like this. I want to come back to this club. I mean, honestly, so. Just everything about it. I think you guys are so well organized. I really love the chart and the visibility and the flags and the awards and just the way you guys ran down the agenda tonight. I think this is a fabulous club and you guys are doing some really great things here. This is the reason why I joined Toastmasters. I'm not the most comfortable speaker and I came here to learn and get better at it, and this is definitely a welcoming environment that I think a lot of you guys I can see where you guys can call this home. This is great, and I'll just leave it at that. I do submit a report, and you guys are getting an A+. Lewis and Rick on this, but we're trying to pin down a date for an area contest. Right. Kind of throwing around the 22nd and 23rd. We could do it before that. We could do it the weekend before. I mean, I'm flexible on when we want to do it. I know there's pull from the Bloomfield Club. I'm visiting with the Toastmasters Club on Thursday. I think there's some desire here from this club to have an area contest. The Ottumwa Club wants to have a contest. So we need to pin down a date and a venue. So I would be anyone interested in supporting and helping that. The Bloomfield Club really said, well, can we do it in Fairfield? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know if we have room in Fairfield or we have a place for it. But
So club members, who want to have the area club here? Raise your hand. That's your answer.
Would we have it here in this facility, or is it?
Yeah, we could.
Would there be enough
Yep.
room?
We could have a library, too.
Or would we need more space?
We got more room.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll find something.
Yeah.
We can figure that out later. And then I just make the plug that on the 25th of October is the Division E contest. That's in Moline at the Western Illinois University. And then there's a district conference on the 14th and 15th in Waterloo.
Of November.
Of November.
Great.
Very good,
Thank you,
guys.
Corey. Okay, so first of all, before you hand in your evaluations to the speakers, again, sign them, please, because they can't read your writing. They go back to you. Want to acknowledge Louis Denbaum and Scott Terry spoke this weekend at for about 150 people at the synagogue, and Scott spoke to about 250 people on campus. So Scott, great job. Now, most importantly of the club business is that we are having our special guest speaker on the 21st, 2 weeks from tonight. Dr. Lori Knoll, the superintendent of the school system. We have the posters ready to go. And what we'd like to do tonight is have you take a poster or two and tell Diane where you're going to put it up, so we know that we've covered all of the great places in town that we can put posters up, and that we're not duplicating or we're not missing a place. So if you would do that on your way out, the posters are over there. Figure out if you need a small one or a big one, and tell Diane on your way out where you're going to put it up. And this is how we get people to come. They see the poster. And Dr. Dole is the new superintendent. She's making a splash all around town. People are very interested in her as a speaker and her topic, so let's get a lot of people to show up and to support her and to support the club. We do need a few role players. We still have some role players we need for that talk. We need panel members. One of the things that we do is we have 4 people come up to the front, and there's someone who interviews them, asks you questions about your involvement in Toastmasters. Who's been here about 6 months, more or less, and would like to be on the panel?
Louis, just was gonna say, usually the panel moderator
Okay.
kind of does a, you know,
Yeah,
thing.
I'll get the phone.
You'll get it? Okay,
I'll
great.
get the phone calls.
Okay, very good.
He'll take care.
So Rick will be in touch with you. How about a timer? Would someone like to time the table topics that night? Art, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. The other thing is that I will be putting together, creating a Facebook event for this, and that I will send the link to all of you. And then if you're on Facebook, please invite all your Fairfield friends to come by way of the Facebook event. We'll also be sending out a small template of an email that you can copy and paste and email to your friends in Fairfield. So by Facebook and by email and posters, we'll also have an ad in one of the papers. We hope then to really get like 150 people to show up at this event. So that's what we're shooting for. Any other club business? Yes.
You might know where it's gonna be.
It's gonna be it's on the poster, but just in case you don't look at the poster, but you should look at the poster because I want every one of you to take one. It's at the Fairfield Public Library, 7:30. Okay? More on this next week, but please leave with a poster. Any other club business? Any of you guests who are interested in joining the club or need more information about the club, please see Gene Simonton Craig. Okay? We'd love to have you. It's a fun place. I think you had a fun time, yes?
Yeah, I really enjoyed being here. This was really, really wonderful.
Good. Other guests?
I enjoyed it a lot.
You enjoyed it a lot too? Good. Aurelian?
Yeah, it was definitely a fun week to come and listen to all the funny topics that were also very informative.
Good, good, good.
Gorgeous.
Gabe?
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous, all right.
Gorgeous.
Good description.
It was admirable.
Admirable, yes. And your experience?
Good.
Good? Very good. Okay, great. Any other, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned.